The slave market smelled like oil, blood, and fear. Alien creatures shouted prices in different languages. The ground was muddy, the cages were rusty, and broken bodies sat silently inside them. Some were big, strong, and dangerous. Others were small, thin, and weak. But one cage in the far corner was different. Inside, it sat a girl, an alien girl, with soft gray-blue skin, tangled hair, and a body full of scars. Her clothes were torn, barely covering her. Chains held her wrists and ankles. Her eyes stared at the ground, lifeless. The sign on her cage said, "Broken toy, no warranty. Lowest price." Buyers passed by her, laughing. "She doesn't even move." One alien hissed, "She's useless." "Probably broken inside," another sneered. "No voice, no fight. Just throw her in the trash." But she didn't react. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She had learned long ago that no one cared. Then someone new entered the market. A human man. He was tall, quiet, and dressed in old armor. His beard was short, his eyes tired but sharp. He didn't walk like a buyer, he walked like someone who had seen too much war. The crowd noticed him. Humans were rare here, most were. Gone after the border wars, but this one didn't seem afraid. He walked slowly through the market, looking at each cage, until he stopped in front of hers. He said nothing. He simply stared at her. The girl didn't look up. She had seen this before. They stare, then laugh, then walk away. But this time, he knelt down. He looked directly into her face, his voice calm. "What's your name?" he asked. She didn't answer. He waited a moment, then turned to the trader. "How much?" The trader laughed out loud. "That one. Take her for half a credit. Useless." "Scrap. That one. Doesn't eat, doesn't speak. Probably lost her mind." The human nodded. "I'll take her." The crowd behind him burst into laughter. Maybe he likes broken things. Maybe he's lonely. Maybe he's crazy. But the human ignored them. He paid the coin, and the trader unlocked the cage. When the door opened, the girl didn't move. The human walked in slowly, crouched beside her, and offered his hand. She flinched. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "Let's go." Still, she didn't speak. But slowly, she moved, crawling out of the cage like a ghost. Her legs were weak, but the man didn't rush her. He simply walked beside her until they reached his small transport ship waiting at the edge of the market. He didn't tie her down. He didn't chain her again. He simply helped her sit on a seat and handed her a blanket. She looked at it, confused. No one had ever offered her warmth. The ship lifted off, and the market disappeared behind them. Inside the quiet cabin, the human sat across from her. "I'm not here to own you," he said. "I just didn't want to leave you there." She stared at him, unsure. Was this another trick? Another kind master who would become cruel later? He reached into a small bag and pulled out food. "You hungry?" She looked down at her own hands, dirty, shaking, and took the food slowly. She ate like someone who didn't believe it was real. That night, while she slept on a soft floor mat, he sat in the pilot's seat, staring out the window. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story, but something in her broken silence reminded him of someone long gone. The ship moved silently through the stars, but inside the cabin, the silence was loud. The alien girl sat near the wall, curled in the blanket he'd gave her. She hadn't spoken a single word since they left the slave market. Her eyes followed the movement of the stars outside, but her face stayed blank. No fear, no trust, just emptiness. The human sat across from her, working on a small device in his hands. Sparks flew as he fixed a cracked circuit board, his fingers careful and practiced. Tools lay all around him. The room smelled like metal and engine oil. He didn't look at her much, but he wasn't ignoring her either. Every few minutes, he slid a small food pack toward her. She took it silently and ate, always slowly, always watching him like a trapped animal, waiting for pain. She didn't understand him. Why didn't he beat her? Why didn't he chain her again? Why did he let her sleep freely, without fear? On the third day, something strange happened. He walked in with 2 cups, one for him, one for her. He placed hers near her side, then sat down and drank his own. She stared at it, then picked it up and sniffed it warm, slightly sweet. She sipped it. He smiled. "That's tea," he said. She blinked but said nothing. He sighed and looked at the control screen. "We'll reach the edge of the belt in 3 days. After that, no one's chasing us." Still nothing. Then he tried again. "My name's Keller. I'm a mechanic. Used to work on battleships before everything fell apart." He glanced at her. "What? About you? You've got a name?" She lowered her eyes and slowly shook her head. He nodded. "All right. No rush." But inside, something tugged at his heart. She wasn't just quiet. She was gone. Like someone who had been hurt too many times and didn't know how to return. That night, she watched him from the shadows. Keller was sitting on the floor, fixing a broken drone. His hands moved with care, even when the machine sparked and burned. He didn't curse or throw it. He just stayed calm and worked. She had seen many men before. Loud, angry, dangerous. But he was different. Quiet, gentle, kind. She didn't understand why. Later, as he stood up and stretched his back, he noticed her watching. "You know," he said, "this drone's worse than me. But I'm still trying to fix it." She tilted her head, curious. He smiled. "Some things aren't garbage. They just need time." He didn't expect a reply. But something flickered in her expression. The next morning, he found her in the engine room. She was holding a tool in her shaking hands, staring at a loose pipe. When she saw him, she dropped it quickly, scared she'd made a mistake. But he didn't shout. "Want to help?" he asked. She paused, then slowly nodded. He handed her a wrench and guided her hands. She was clumsy at first, but careful. Every bolt she turned made her feel something. A small light inside her chest flickered. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just surviving. She was doing something. That night, he gave her a pillow and placed it beside the warm panel. "You earned it," he said. She touched it, like it was made of gold. Then something strange happened as he walked away. She opened her mouth and whispered, barely louder than breath, "Thank you." Keller froze. He turned around, eyes wide. "What did you say?" She looked scared, like she had done something wrong. He raised his hands calmly. "No, it's okay. I'm glad you spoke." She lowered her eyes again, unsure. If she could trust this strange man, but inside, her chest felt warm. No one had thanked him in a long time either. The ship moved through the silent stars. 2 broken souls sitting inside one who had lost her voice and one who had forgotten how to feel. But now both had taken a step, not toward escape, but toward healing. Keller worked quietly inside the engine bay. The ship had taken some damage before he bought it cheap, and now he was repairing one wire at a time. Sparks flew. Tools clanked. The hum of the core echoed softly through the floor, just behind him. The alien girl sat cross-legged on the floor, watching every movement with wide eyes. Her thin fingers nervously twisted the corner of her blanket. She hadn't spoken again since that whisper of thank you. But something had changed. She had started watching not like a frightened animal, but like a student. And Keller had noticed. He handed her a small tool. "Want to try this wire?" She hesitated, then nodded once. Her hands still shook, but she did it. Slowly, carefully, and when she looked up for approval, Keller smiled. "That's perfect," he said. "You've got good hands." Her cheeks changed color slightly, maybe her species' version of a blush, but she looked away quickly. He didn't push her to speak again. He just kept working, sometimes humming an old Earth song. The melody made her feel safe, even if she didn't understand the words. Later that day, while tightening a metal bracket, Keller dropped a wrench. It clanged loudly on the metal floor. "Darn it," he muttered, rubbing his shoulder. Before he could bend down to get it, she moved. She crawled over, picked up the wrench, and handed it to him. Then, softly, she said one word. "Sorry, Keller." Blinked, his eyes met hers. "For what?" She paused. Then tried again. "You dropped it." "I didn't help fast." Keller shook his head gently. "You don't have to be sorry, not for something like that." There was silence. Then she whispered again. "On my last ship, I got hit. When I was slow." Keller's chest tightened. He looked at her for a long moment. "You're not on that ship anymore." She nodded. Barely that night, Keller placed 2 trays of food on the table, one for him, one for her. For the first time, she sat beside him, not across the room. She still ate slowly, still watched him with careful eyes. But when he reached for his cup, she beat him to it and filled it for him. Keller smiled. "Thanks." She looked surprised. "You said, 'Thank you.'" "Of course. That's what people do." She thought for a moment. "I don't know how to do people." Keller leaned back. "That's okay. I'll show you." She looked down. "Do I have to be useful to stay here?" Keller frowned. "No. You just have to want to stay." Another pause. Then she nodded very slowly. "I do." And just like that, she smiled. It was small, weak, but real. Her eyes softened, just for a second. And that second was enough. Later, while she slept, in the corner with the blanket wrapped tight, Keller sat alone in the pilot seat. Looking at her from afar, he whispered to himself, "She's not broken, just waiting to remember who she is." His fingers reached into his coat, pulling out a photo. It was old, faded. A picture of another girl, his daughter. Long gone. Taken by war. That was the real reason he stopped at that slave market. He saw something in this girl's eyes. Not just pain, but a lost kind of hope. And maybe, just maybe, he was ready to start hoping again, too. The hum of the ship's engine echoed gently through the halls. It was calm, too calm for her. The alien girl stood near a panel, wiping the floor with a damp cloth. No one had asked her to clean, but it felt safe to move. She was working. She wasn't being hurt. If her hands were busy, she wouldn't be punished. She was used to silence, used to looking over her shoulder, so when a soft footstep came behind her, she dropped the cloth and froze. A hand touched her shoulder gently. She screamed. It wasn't loud, but sharp, panicked, pure survival. Keller backed away, hands in the air. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to startle you." She dropped to her knees and covered her head, shaking. Her breath came out in quick bursts. The cloth lay forgotten on the floor. Keller didn't move closer. He knelt where he was and sat on the cold floor. "I didn't mean to scare you," he repeated gently. After a long moment, she lifted her head, her eyes wet and wide. "Don't punish," she whispered. Keller's face twisted in pain. "I'm never going to punish you." She stared at him, unsure. He stayed still. "Do you want to talk about it?" She hesitated. Then slowly, painfully, she began. "I was taken when I was small," she said. "They said I was pretty, that I could make them rich." Her hands curled into fists. "They dressed me up in colors I didn't like. Taught me to walk, to smile, to obey. If I disobeyed, they shocked me. If I cried, they laughed. If I ran, they beat me. Keller didn't interrupt. He just listened, his heart breaking. I wasn't even a person. I was a thing, a toy, something to show off, something to break. She touched her shoulder, the spot where the scar still burned under her skin. One time, a buyer hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. They told me it was my fault, that I shouldn't have spoken without permission. Her voice cracked. I stopped talking after that. Tears fell silently from her eyes. I forgot my name. I forgot how to be alive. Keller's voice was low. You didn't deserve any of that. She looked at him. But I was weak. No, he said firmly. You were trapped. There's a difference. Her lips trembled. Then why did you buy me? Keller took a breath. Because I saw someone who needed help, and because I once had a daughter. She blinked. She died in the war, taken by people who saw her as a number, not a soul. I couldn't save her, but maybe I can help you remember who you are. She was silent, but she didn't look away. That night, the ship floated in space near an asteroid field. Keller sat in the repair bay, working on a hover unit. The girl entered slowly, watching him. She held something in her hands, a small, rusted panel. Can I help? He smiled. Of course. She sat beside him, their shoulders close, but not touching. She handed him tools, wiped grease from the edges, watched carefully. Then she whispered, Can I ask something? Anything, Keller said. Why don't you touch me? He paused. Because no one should touch you unless you say it's okay. She looked down. I don't remember what okay feels like. Keller nodded slowly. Then we take it one day at a time. She smiled, a small, sad smile. But it was real. Later that night, Keller found a small box and brought it to her. Inside was a set of simple clothes, soft, warm, clean. These are yours now, he said. You don't have to wear what they gave you. She held them like they were made of gold. And then she whispered something. I want a name. Keller's eyes softened. You can have any name you want, she thought deeply. Then whispered, Sierra. He repeated it softly. Sierra. She nodded. Yes, that's me now. And for the first time since she entered his ship, she stood tall. The stars outside the ship glittered peacefully. But peace never lasted long in this part of space. Keller was checking the engine panel when the ship's alarm beeped, soft but urgent. He frowned and tapped the screen. Incoming ship detected. No signal ID. Approaching fast. He didn't panic, but something in his chest tightened. Sierra stood behind him now. She had learned how to read simple alerts. When she saw the screen, her face turned pale. Is it bad? She asked. Keller nodded. Could be. Stay behind me. The unknown ship docked fast, too fast. Keller locked the main door and grabbed his plasma tool, half weapon. Half torch. Sarah stood still, her hands shaking. Something in her body remembered this feeling. Footsteps echoed through the docking tunnel, and then the door was blown open. Smoke, lights flashing. Out stepped a tall alien with a scarred face. Golden rings on his fingers and cruel eyes that recognized Sierra instantly. Well, well, the alien growled. Still alive, little toy. Sierra froze. Her legs wouldn't move. Her voice disappeared. Keller stepped in front of her. She's not going anywhere with you. The alien laughed. She was stolen property. My master wants her back. Keller kept his voice calm. She's not property. And I don't care what your master wants. The bounty hunter's eyes narrowed. Then I'll take both of you. Without warning, he pulled out a shock whip and snapped it toward Keller. The human dodged. Barely, and swung. The plasma tool. Sparks flew, burning the air. Sierra ducked behind a panel, but her eyes never left Keller. The man who had given her a name was now fighting to protect her. He grunted as the whip grazed his arm. But he stood tall. Then Sierra saw Keller was slowing. He was bleeding, and the bounty hunter was smiling. Sierra had spent her whole life frozen, silent, waiting to be hurt. But something inside her cracked. No, not cracked, ignited. She looked around and spotted a heavy wrench. She grabbed it. Her feet moved, her breath pounded. She ran forward and, with all her strength, she screamed, "Leave him alone." She struck the alien across the back with the wrench. He roared, turning fast. Keller, bleeding but alert, used the distraction. He hit the bounty hunter straight in the chest with the plasma tool. Sparks exploded. The alien fell, stunned, together. Sierra and Keller tied him with high-voltage cables. Breathing hard, Keller leaned back. "You okay?" he asked. Sierra nodded, still gripping the wrench tightly. Her voice shook. "I hit him." Keller smiled through the pain. "You saved me." She dropped the wrench and suddenly hugged him tight, desperate, scared. "I didn't want to lose you," she whispered. "You won't," he said, holding her close. "Not ever." Later, after the attacker was locked in a pod and ejected toward the nearest patrol station, Sierra helped clean Keller's wound. She pressed a cloth to his arm and frowned. "Does it hurt?" "A little," he chuckled, "but I've had worse." She stayed close to him, quiet, then asked, "Why did he want me back?" Keller looked at her gently. "Because monsters don't like losing control. But he's gone now. You're free." She swallowed. "But I wasn't brave." Froze. "You picked up a wrench and screamed at a monster," he said. "That's braver than most." Her eyes softened. "I was scared," she said. "And you still acted," he replied. "That's courage." That night, Sierra sat at the window, watching stars pass by. She wasn't shaking anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was thinking. She had fought back. She had spoken. She had protected someone. Maybe she was more than just someone's past. Maybe she could have a future. The stars drifted slowly across the window. Keller sat at the small table, a mug of warm liquid in his hands. His arm was wrapped in a bandage, and he winced now and then. But his eyes were calm. Sierra sat across from him, not curled in a corner, not hiding. She sat tall, her hands folded in her lap, clean clothes hugging her thin frame. A fresh cut across her cheek had been covered with a small strip. Her hair, now combed, framed her soft alien features. The silence between them was not heavy anymore. It was peaceful. Keller took a sip and smiled. "You did good back there, Sierra." She looked down. "I didn't know I could be strong." "You don't have to know it," he said. "You are it." She looked at him, her eyes more alive than ever. "I was scared." "You still acted. That's bravery, not fearlessness." She smiled slightly. Then she spoke again. "Can I ask for something?" "Of course." She looked down at her hands. "I want to keep the name you gave me, Sierra, but I want more. I want a full name, a real name." Keller leaned forward. "You can have any name you want." She took a deep breath. Then, "I want to be Sarah Keller." Keller froze. The cup stopped in his hand. He looked into her eyes, searching for the reason. Sierra's voice shook. "I know I'm not your daughter. I know I'm different. But you treated me like I mattered, like I was someone." "Someone," he said, quietly. "I want to belong somewhere," she whispered, "even if it's just to a name." Keller stared at her, his throat tight. He reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. "Then it's yours," he said. Sierra Keller, her eyes filled with tears, not from pain, but from something else. Joy, belonging, hope. Later that day, They worked side by side in the engine bay. Keller explained the new stabilizer module. Sarah followed his every word, nodding, asking small questions. Her hands moved with growing confidence, tightening bolts, checking connections. "You're good at this," he said. "I like fixing things," she replied. "You were never broken, you know." She paused, then smiled. "Maybe. But I like the idea that I can build something now." He laughed. "Fair enough." That evening, Keller took an old patch from a storage box, a faded cloth emblem from his war days. It showed a rising sun over a metal gear. He handed it to her. "This was on my uniform. Thought you might want it." She took it slowly, like he'd given her a piece of the stars. "What does it mean?" she asked. "Hope that we can still rise, even when everything feels broken." She pressed it to her chest. "Then I want to wear it." The next morning, they stood in front of the ship's console. Keller pulled up a registry screen. "Let's make it official," he said. He typed into the system. "Passenger manifest update. Name, Sarah Keller. Status, crew engineer in training. Species, redacted origin." Sarah stared at the screen, her lips trembling. "That's real. As real as it gets." Keller smiled. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but she wiped them quickly and stood tall. "I'm part of something," she said. "You always were," he replied. That night, before sleep, she walked into the common room holding a small piece of metal. "I want to make something," she said. Keller watched as she sat down and carefully carved the letters SK into the corner of the panel. "It's for my room door," she said softly, "so I never forget who I am now." He nodded, pride glowing in his eyes. "You've come a long way, Sarah Keller." She looked at him with warmth. "Because you didn't give up on me." A soft breeze touched the metal rooftops of the small colony outpost. Keller stood at the edge of the landing bay, hands on his hips, watching the twin suns rise over the mountains. His old ship rested behind him, patched and steady, just like him. It wasn't much, but it had carried them through fire. Sarah stood beside him, wearing a gray mechanic's jumpsuit, with the rising sun patch stitched proudly on her chest. Her posture was taller now, her eyes were clearer. Her voice, though still quiet, carried strength. "You sure you want to do this?" Keller asked. Sarah looked out at the Colonia, peaceful place of families, workers, and gentle alien life. "Yes," she said. "I want to help build something that doesn't hurt people." He smiled. "That's a good reason." They had arrived at the colony a week ago. Keller had found some repair jobs, and Sarah was quickly noticed for her careful hands and steady learning. The colony chief, a kind alien woman, had offered her a spot on the station's repair team. "She has good eyes," the chief had said. "Sees what others miss." And Sarah did. She noticed cracks in walls, loose wires in corners, forgotten tools left behind. But more than that, she noticed people. She smiled at the shy kids who stared at her strange skin. She greeted the old vendor, who always gave her extra fruit, and for the first time in her life, people smiled back. That evening, Keller sat on the porch of the repair shed, sipping warm tea. The stars above were quiet, but his heart wasn't. Sarah stepped out, wiping oil from her hands. "I fixed the water valve," she said proudly. "Did it leak again?" Keller asked. She shook her head. "Nope, I tightened it better than you did." I laughed. "Well, I guess I'm training my replacement." She sat beside him. "Not replacement, partner." He looked at her and nodded. "Yeah, that sounds right." After a moment, Sarah pulled something from her pocket. A small, smooth stone. On it, she had scratched a simple shape, a gear and a sun. "It's our sign," she said, "for rising again." He took the stone gently. "You made this?" She nodded. "It's for the ship. I want to place it by the engine." Keller smiled. "Then we'll make it part of the ship forever." The next morning, a visitor came to the colony, a traveling merchant, with eyes like steel and a tongue like poison. He saw Sira walking by and narrowed his gaze. "I've seen you before," he sneered. "Weren't you a slave girl somewhere? Sira?" Stopped. She didn't flinch. She didn't hide. She walked up to him and calmly said, "I was." The merchant smirked. "Still look like one." Before he could speak more, Keller appeared behind her, but Sira raised her hand gently. "I don't need you to speak for me," she said. Then she turned to the merchant, her voice strong. "I'm Sira Keller now. I have a name. I have work. I have worth, and if you can't see that, then maybe you're the one who's broken." The merchant blinked, speechless, then turned and walked away. Sira exhaled slowly. Keller stood beside her. "Stunned? You didn't even punch him," he said. She smiled, "Didn't need to." He looked at her proudly. "You've grown." "No," she replied. "I've remembered who I was always meant to be." That night, the two of them sat on the ship's roof, staring at the stars. Keller pointed upward. "That one's Earth. Never thought I'd leave it so far behind." Sira leaned back. "Do you miss it?" "Sometimes," he said, "but I don't." "Feel lost anymore?" She looked at him. "Because of me." "Yeah," he said softly, "because of you." She smiled, and after a long silence, she whispered, "Thank you." For choosing me, Keller turned to her. "You were never broken, Sira." She looked into the sky. "No, just healing." In the quiet stars above and the humble colony below, a forgotten girl had become something more. Not a tool, not a toy. Not a slave, but a person, a name, a soul, a future.